G'day, battlers! And today we're here with the one, the only, the NoFunPayneDunn to go through some very interesting data in terms of what is actually going on in the Venture Cup, what teams are being successful, what Pokemon have got. They're kind of topping the sort of point leaderboards, as well as some other kind of interesting data that has cropped up through the Venture Cup. So, Payne, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what you're doing, how this all kind of came together. Take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm NoFunPayneDunn. I'm from Kingston, Ontario, in Canada, and this spreadsheet was sort of an accumulation of information that I was struggling to find elsewhere. In Venture Cup, the meta is so open and diverse, and there are so many paths you can take for the team that you wanted to build. I was struggling a little bit with some of the early tournaments, and I wanted to just sort of have access to what was doing well, what everybody else was having success with, so that I could help fill in, the last missing pieces of the teams that I was putting together to play in practice tournaments. And this is sort of the efforts of that.
Yeah, and they are very good efforts, by the way. So essentially, we've got a few different columns here. Do you actually kind of just want to kind of roll us through this spreadsheet? Tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah, of course. So I've got everything broken down into the respective point values for the team builder. 10 points, 6 point, 4 point, 1 point, and then as well a small breakdown based on typing, and then a breakdown based on the point values that people are using. It's like 6, 4, 4, 1, 1, 1, etc. And then they're ordered via Pokedex number as well as their success rate. So we've taken any team that manages to get 3 or more points in a 3 or more round event. So 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, etc. And then we've got them all listed by the success rates, and that's in the win count column. You see Hypno is leading the 10 points, Deoxys Defense is leading the 6 point, Abomasnow at 4, and Ninetales at 1, etc. And then in the type charts, there's Flying and Psychic, Water and Grass sort of leading the early metagame there. And then in terms of stat distribution, 6, 4, 4, 1, 1, 4 seems to be the most popular team format that's finding success early on.
I mean, by far, with 67 wins compared to, it's over half of the wins.
Absolutely,
from that sort of distribution, which is definitely interesting. I guess you've got the most pointed mons on the team, which probably has something to do with it in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, and I think the one of the bigger reflections of it actually was it's as we progress more towards when the format is actually starting next month. The initial breakdown was actually larger of 6 triple 4 double 1. That was overwhelming. It was only the odd maybe 1 or 2 in every 3 or 4 tournaments. 10-6 player or 6-6-4 that was finding success. But as people sort of get more comfortable with how to play their Hypnos and the right move sets for like Hypno Mew, we're seeing the 6-10 get a little more popular.
Ah, that makes sense. I was also kind of wondering if maybe there was a little bit of people are kind of finding some 1 point mons that work for them, so they're able to kind of dip more into the 1 point as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing too.
Yeah, but straight away, before we bury the lead a little bit, this is obviously all kind of built on tournaments. This is just taking a bunch of data from the tournaments, from the people who are winning. So if anyone out there is doing any Venture Cup tournament, early tournament, practice tournament, whatever, where can they kind of send these through to kind of make this data as good as possible? Because it's really just rising tide helps. Almost got there. Rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This only exists with access to the data, right? I only currently have readily access to the Flash for Everyone Discord server, but you can reach me on Discord. My Discord link is right in the spreadsheet. I would appreciate any and all 3+ points, rounder, tournaments, events, anything for venture practice, so I can get it in here. This is more beneficial for me and for everybody else with the more information that I have. So the more I can get, the better. And if anybody can send those along my way, that would be incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be sending any of the ID through as well. But this spreadsheet is going to be linked in the description below. So if you want to go there, all the information is going to be there as well. And it's going to hopefully update over time. So, if you're seeing this video in 2 weeks, this spreadsheet may look very different as the meta kind of shit. So I guess we'll start kind of going through what we're actually looking at in terms of the mons that are good.
Yeah,
in terms of the 10.6.4.1 point. So I'm seeing like Hypno is a pretty well in the lead in the 10 point. And I guess that's just kind of like with the last few months have all been sort of Hypno-y metas. Hypno is always a good Pokemon. It's got a bunch of moves it can use. No one knows what it can definitely be. They have to be a little bit scared. There's always the chance of like a Focus Blast hiding the wings. And it's just really good.
Been hit by a Focus Blast on Hypno once or twice.
Well, I was the one running it back in regional season 2.
There you go.
But I guess with no darks, it's a very powerful Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly been the go-to for the 10 points. And I think the biggest thing, especially in a very open meta like this, is its flexibility. You have to respect all of like elemental punches, ice punch, fire punch, thunder punch, because realistically, depending on the breakdown of the rest of your team, it's completely reasonable to have any of them. I think that Shadow Ball is likely going to be what you're going to see on just about every Hypno, but the second move, being incredibly flexible, Hypno is really, really good at, demanding those shields early on, especially if you catch yourself in like a 50-50 lead that can be largely dependent on what the Hypno is running. Kind of demands your respect. You shield the first move, or, maybe you lose the whole game, you pick. So it's, I think that's why we're seeing a lot of early Hypno take off in the 10 point, as opposed to Frostlass and Altaria, who are both really good picks in their own right, but they're a little, you can expect what you expect. There's no surprises there. Frostlass is going to throw a bunch of avalanches. Altaria's with the new Moonblast, it's going to be tossing Moonblast at you, but it's really the Dragon Breath that it's there for. But Hypno still has a lot of flexibility to it, and I think that a lot of players opting to take a 10-point mon really value a lot of that flexibility.
Yeah, and I feel like some of it is also like Altaria, for example. You have other Dragon Breath users that cost less points, and it's kind of an easier mon to replace. Frostlass, you've got that Abomasnow, like it's at the top of the 4-point tier for a reason, and it's kind of replacing that Frostlass role. Like if you have Abomasnow and Frostlass, you're burning 14 points on kind of like two of the same-ish role. Obviously, they're a little bit different. Frost has the Shadow Ball. It's a little bit more dangerous than Abomasnow, but you are kind of feeling that role a little bit. And Lickitung as well, even though it's still at 8 wins, like it's nothing to sneeze at. There are other normal types with that ghost damage that can be used. Although in saying that, I'm not really seeing any that are too close to the top. I guess normal form Deoxys is actually kind of high-ish on the 1 point, which is kind of interesting. It's got 12 wins to its name, which
the normal cast form seems to be the premier cast form usage so far. It's actually the most popular normal ghost type user as well, and I think that because it requires such a small amount of investment in terms of your team's points, it's really easy just to slot in as a 6th mon, and you've got that gap filled. It's nice and easy. You don't need to think about it. The normal cast form does its job every time. It's a very basic plan of attack, but it works effectively, and it does it very well.
Yeah, exactly right. And Leaky is down there as well in that 3 was from the 6.1, but obviously not the big sort of premiery sort of pick. And one thing that I was thinking when I first saw this meta, and Hypno is kind of there in that 10-point slot, Mew seems like the sort of pick that fills a similar role in the sense that it's sort of this Swiss Army knife. It's got some good play up against the other Psychics Ghosts, where Hypno has that Shadow Ball, Mew's got that Shadow Claw, and then a much larger variety in the moveset. This is going to be the first time that I'm kind of looking at Mew. I still haven't got mine yet. I still have some kilometers to walk and some research tasks to finish. Yeah. But and it's got the win count to show for it as well. Is that second?
Yeah, I think that Mew is the most interesting in terms of development so far. If you were following along with the spreadsheet, if you got a chance to take a look at it earlier on, Mew was kind of a slow startup. Mew was one of the lower 4-point mon picks until a very, very early core started to appear. The most popular core that we were seeing earlier on was Drifloon, Abomasnow, and then either Deoxys Defense and Medicham. That was kind of the initial, core that was brute strengthening its way through. It was putting up the most consistent results. And then Mew was even below where like Swampert, Dragonite, and Crustle are sitting right now. And I think it took a little while for because it is so flexible, I think that the initial Mew move set was something like Dragon Claw, Surf, maybe even Psyshock, something along those lines. But now that a very early core has started to show itself with Drifloon, with Abomasnow, and with Deoxys Defense and Medicham, you can actually just run like Wild Charge, Flame Charge on a Mew and just eat that core for lunch. It's got good matchups everywhere, and 4 points as opposed to the big 10-point investment from Hypno it's really not asking a whole lot. You can fit this into basically any team and have reasonable results with it. And because of the wide move pool in a similar way to Hypno, it demands respect if you catch a 50-50 lead. Because of how potent Surf is against a lot of the 1-point Pokemon in the meta, and how good Dragon Claw still can be. But you can play Wild Charge, Flame Charge, and not really lose any of your good matchups, and you gain a whole bunch more, especially into that Abomasnow, into the Drifloon, into the Deoxys and the Medicham. So I think as the moveset on Mew kind of starts to stabilize, I think that it'll most likely in a few weeks be the dominant force 4-point Pokemon, even over Abomasnow.
Yeah, and I do feel like a big rise in Mew will mean a decrease in Hypno. So
absolutely,
whether that brings just, I guess, fewer 10-point teams, because I feel like at that point, if you're replacing Hypno, you can kind of replace everyone. And all the Marowak is a little bit harder to replace, I guess. Actually, the fire damage brings you to that top Pokemon in the 1-point slot with that Ninetales.
Yeah.
So I guess it's pretty well covered in that regard for a lot cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely. Ninetales is definitely one of the, at least for me, was the big surprise pick. I think that fire coverage was, if you kind of looked at the meta overview very early on and where the point accolation was, you could kind of tell that the 1-point slot was going to be where a lot of the fire type Pokemon sort of reside. Talonflame at 6-point is still very, very good. Prismatic Cup, it was a menace. It will be good here as well. But because of all of the innate anti-flyer that's going to be around because of how dominant that typing is in general, it's a little more fragile. Especially when you expect a lot of teams to have things like Defense Form Deoxys or even, matchups that were normally going to be pretty dominant for Talonflame, having readily available counters. Alolan Raichu is another great 1-pointer that sort of sneaks in there and can, eat that matchup for lunch. So I expected the 1-point pick would be where you'd see a lot of the fire type Pokemon. Ninetales being as popular as it has been has definitely been a surprise for me, though.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a very, I was not expecting Ninetales, to be honest. When I was going through the meta, I was like, I didn't see a huge need for fire, but I guess, as you're seeing this Abomasnow just right to the top, fire is just that really nice, hard coverage that you can kind of get. Plus, you've got some other sort of moveset options, I suppose. Not the biggest coverage in the world, but you've got that option for Psyshock, which is somewhat interesting, depending on what you're looking at. You've also got the chance with the solar beam, which is always
the big old solar beam. Everybody's been solar beam too. It's much like the focus blast on Hypno. It happens to everybody at least once. I think another reason for the big stock in Ninetales as well is Galvantula is really, really strong in the 6 points, and it's kind of been a sleeper. Like, everybody knows it's good, but it's because I think of the availability of Deoxys Defense being available in any format. That's kind of been where a lot of the attention is. So I think that Galvantula is kind of sort of snuck through and under the radar of maybe a lot of players who are looking to build teams. And there's not a lot of good bug Pokemon available aside from Galvantula. So having a nice answer to that, that you might, you're already going to include a good fire Pokemon, so you have access to the Abomasnow coverage, but having access to something that also deals with Galvantula is great.
Yeah, I know the comment on the bug types. I just have to scroll on the spreadsheet a little bit here, but the bug types is at the bottom of the typing sort of win count thing here. So we've got can you kind of run me through kind of what we are looking at here? So, we've got 10.6 point, 4.1 point, we've got all the typings.
Yeah, for sure. So the type breakdown is just based on popularity on typing. It's very, very broad and kind of like nuanced. There's not a whole lot of really like hard data you can gather from it, but we broke it down in the same way that we did with the Pokemon. So, there's 6 points in the 10-point column for flying. It's because of the There shouldn't be 6 points in the 10-point hyping. A lot of this was automated by another member of the community, Music Michael, and he's in there fiddling with some of the numbers right now. So it's a work in progress. It always will be. But that's where the number of Pokemon that show up of that type in teams that have 3 or more points show up. So in 6 points, we see 15 for Bug because there's 15. Galvantula has shown up 15 times in 3-point or higher teams. Yep. And it's broken down that way. So the same way that there's 15 in the 6-point column for Electric, again, it's Galvantula there. So that's kind of like a simple way to break down that sheet.
Yeah, I do think it's very interesting that Dragon is so low, because I feel like there was a lot of very early emphasis, even from myself, about how, these double Dragon Breath, triple Dragon Breath teams might be pretty overwhelming. Dragon Breath's a really powerful move. We've all heard that, because this is kind of like Retro Cup, we've heard that there's nothing that's really there to kind of resist this Dragon Breath damage. But it's kind of not bringing home the bacon, it sort of seems.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially early on. And I think that was definitely, I had the same impression. I was expecting a lot of double dragon ABB lineups. This is the first time that we've really gotten to play with Goodra in a Silph format, and Goodra was bolstering some crazy wins just in GBL with great coverage with Muddy Water and Power Whip. So I was expecting to see a lot of dragon usage, but I think that the initial popularity of the Abomasnow, Drifloon, and Deoxys Defense cores, they just take the dragon's lunch money. There's not a whole lot that they can do into those 3. So there was a lot of dragon teams showing up earlier on, but they kind of weren't as successful, at least in the sense of Kingdras and Goodras, and maybe even like Dragonairs. But the dragon teams that have found success have been a lot of Dragonite, like Shadow Dragonite with Shadow Swampert, Shadow Abomasnow, Shadow Ninetales, just like all aggression, just brute force their way through teams, and that seems to be where the dragons are finding their success. But Goodra so far has put up pretty underwhelming results. The same can be said for Kingdra. I was expecting to see a lot more Kingdra, especially it being in the 6-point slot in the 6-point column. That's where I kind of figured that anybody that wanted to play those dragon heavy teams, that's where they would start with the Kingdra and then adapt down. But the inherent popularity of Abomasnow and Drifloon has really shut the dragons down. So I think that as Mew kind of starts to bully the Abomasnow Drifloon course, there's an opportunity for the dragons to start picking up again, and then we'll have this really interesting, not rock paper scissors in the sense of we're playing the game and it's rock paper scissors matchups, but the meta moving around in this rock paper scissors where you can play the dragons to beat up on the Mew Hypno teams, you can play the Mew Hypno teams to beat up on Obama Drifloon, you can play Drifloon Obama to beat up on the dragon teams, and it's a really neat rotation, and it puts a lot of emphasis on how you fill out the rest of your team. Because instead of just throwing in 2 cast forms so that I can check my box for water and fire coverage, you need a little more nuance and a little more thought into how you want to theory craft the rest of that lineup. So that's where I think a lot of the interesting points in Venture Cup so far really pop up, and that's why it's having such an open meta and an open availability for a lot of these Pokemon is really interesting and really cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely in very full agreement, and as you're saying, Kingdra is a lot lower than I think anyone would have been expecting. Like, I don't think anyone would think that it's only got 1 win out of all of these data sets. You've got Defense Deoxys up at 30. Yeah. And Kindra is just not exactly absolutely bringing home the goods. But, there are a very, somewhat wide selection of Pokemon that are getting some pretty good success here. We've got, Defense Deoxys, Metachamp, Galvantula, Vigoroth, Jellicent, Talonflame, all with over 10 wins. In the 6-point, where in the 10-point, we only saw that Hypno with more than 10. Again, that sort of best typing sort of build of the team was that sort of 6-4-4-4-1-1, which has over half of the wins so far on this spreadsheet. Yeah. Again, send the data in if you have it. We've got some other 4-point as well with, we've kind of talked about a lot of these sort of top ones with the Abomasnow, Mew, the Drifloon, Swampert, Dragonite, Crustle that are appearing a bunch. And then you've got some other ones that are kind of interesting, like Zangoose filling in that sort of Lickitung, normal Ghost slot, Pelipper, Dusclops, Machamp is in there, Lantern, Whiscash. And then pretty wide selection of 1 point as well with your Prime Up is a pretty interesting one because it does obviously have that night slash coverage against the psychics and ghosts that are super old big in the Retro Cup. Though I guess speaking of ghosts, they're not too prevalent here. Like there's a few around. I think the point limitation may be what's really kind of hurt it, shoehorning in that Frostlass and that Mole and Marowak.
I think so, and I think that the biggest way to give yourself a lot of safety in your team building is to have the ghost type attacker be attached to that normal typing, and that's why we see the Zangoose being super popular in the normal cast form. Is they can provide that same kind of ghost type offense, and they demand less points, and they also have a little more bulk to them. They're a little safer, especially the normal type cast form.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I know I'm gonna have to build a normal form, cast form now. It's not one that I'd actually invested in before, but I think that's definitely the kind of right way to look at it. And I guess, initially I was kind of like, oh, maybe that means that psychics are even better, but you are still getting that ghost damage through in the form of the normal types. And then there isn't really, like, Drifloon is kind of the only ghost type that is still kind of kicking around. There's Haunter down at 5 wins in 4 points, but the fact that it's got that poison typing really kind of holds it back a little bit. So like it's not even that great of a Hypno counter because it's taking so much damage from Confusions.
Yeah, it's so much.
A little bit worrying. Gengar also exists, although it's down at 1 win.
Yeah, Gengar hasn't been putting up the numbers, and I think that's why Dusclops has been finding a lot of success. And Dusclops was certainly one that I overlooked. I remember just doing the initial overview of looking at the 4-point Pokemon availability. I felt kind of weird that Dusclops was in the 4-point at all. I was like, maybe somebody who will play this maybe once or twice, but it felt more like a 1 point, more 1 point Pokemon than a 4-point. But again, just being that just Ghost and not having that Poison type attached to it is a huge boon for it, and having access to the Ice Punch is really well.
And Fire Punch for that fire coverage against like a Bomber Snow, for example. Still going to put in a little bit of hurt. I do wonder, there's obviously, you can only have 2 moves, so you're going to have to kind of play around a little bit with what you actually want to end up bringing in. But I remember seeing someone, like when the meta first released and they saw Dusclops was in 4-point, they were saying like, oh, come on, why couldn't Silph just let Dusclops be good? Leave it in 1 point so that we could all use it. But I mean...
Still seems like it's doing pretty good so far, at least. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's doing all right. We've also got some other interesting 1-point mons. So kind of like, I know that a lot of the requests I've got for videos have been talking about what the best 1-point mons are. And we've got a pretty solid list here. We've got Ninetales, that Primate with the coverage, Venusaur, kind of interesting, Noctowl, Lolan Raichu, Quagsire, the 2 cast forms, Normal and Snowy, Superior, Gyarados, Rainy cast form coming in, and Gliscor with a really nice list. Just keep on going down. There's tons of the things that are doing actually really well. Some interesting ones, like I'm seeing that Lugia at 9, and I guess Retro Cup was the first time that someone was able to complete that Caleb Peng challenge with the Zangoose Lugia combo in a single team of 3 for 10 wins. And
absolutely,
they've both pulled in 9 wins, so maybe that's just 9 people who've pulled the Caleb Peng.
100%. I think that's I think that the way that the point breakdown kind of works is that the 1 point Pokemon are where you have to be the most flexible. So I expected to see the biggest amount of diversity in this slot. Certainly not to the degree that we see early on, especially with ones that I probably would have written off pretty early as being just lackluster on their own. I definitely wasn't expecting to see Superior up here with 12 points. Noctowl, we know is good from Commander. We know it has its play, it has its purpose. But again, with Ice being so good to combat what the expected metagame was for Dragons, I wasn't expecting the Noctowl to show up nearly as much. But there is a lot of play in these 1 point slots, and I'm interested to see as the meta continues to develop and as people continue to start putting on these practice events, how consistently the cast forms are able to keep up with the rest of the 1 point Pokemon that can offer more of a flexible coverage, based impact on a team. When you compare, Sunny cast form and Ninetales, which is a really easy one to get your fire coverage, and then you take a look at what Ninetales can offer in terms of, that extra move coming from Psyshock, coming from Solar Beam, it really gets its extra nuts and bolts there and becomes a little more valuable. So I'm interested to see how that develops with the 1 point Pokemon, especially as I monitor the difference of teams, as more people are picking up a 10-6 and then quad 1 approach. Those 1-slot mons will definitely demand a little more flexibility, because you don't have the Mew and Abomasnow on the same team to lean on, or you don't have the DD and Pelipper to give you lots of coverage. So I think that we'll see more of those really flexible 1 point Pokemon. Primate's a perfect example of it. You have to respect Ice Punch, you have to respect Night Slash still, you have to respect close combat. And I think there's a lot of value in adding those onto your team, and the value continues when you're playing your matches. If you can save, holding off on that second move and continue to demand respect in some games, it works out really, really well. And I think that's why we see a lot of those Pokemon finding a lot of success in the 1 point slot.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense to me. They're really important mons. They need to fill a lot of different roles, and we are going to see a kind of wide variety of them. But kind of like looking through here, I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest, at the sort of bigness of grass types. The Venusaurs, the Superiors, again, Meganium's down there at 7 wins as well. Initially, I didn't really see a huge spot for the grass types. I kind of felt like grass was kind of just like looking at Power Whip on Lickitung. I was kind of like, there isn't too much for it to kind of hit in this matter. I was kind of seeing those sort of Leprosy Pokemon that are kind of there to counter those dragons, the ice. But then the biggest ice type is Abomasnow, and it does not have the water type. There obviously are a few water types that have kind of come in here. So, it's like Quagsire at 12. Swampet's actually landed 21, which is obviously doing pretty well. Jellicent 11. So I guess maybe it's kind of a game of just having some sort of grass check on your team.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it is because it's still so early into the format. Nobody wants to get caught, not having the coverage that they need. So I think that's why we see especially a lot of really, really like safe picks like Venusaur being super popular. Everybody knows how good it is. They know how to play the Pokemon. They're comfortable with it. So it's really easy to just kind of like, put your team builder on PvPoke and it says you're weak to grass, and you're like, oh, well, I'll pull in Venusaur. Everybody loves Venusaur. I know that this Pokemon works. I know that it'll do its job. But that is a great point. The how necessary really is the grass type coverage. If you look at the point distribution for typing, we do see that water is very popular, but flying types in this meta are very, very good. And having access to a way to deal with the flying type is going to be very, very good as well. So if I'm looking at the trends, I expect that we'll start to see, less of those hard grass type like Venusaur. We're already seeing, Meganium went from at the beginning of this week having a single victory in 3 or plus points up to now 7, just because of having access to that extra coverage with Earthquake. So I think that we'll see a more higher premium on Pokemon that offer grass type coverage like Meganium rather than something like a Venusaur. And then going forward, even more so on Pokemon that can pack a grass type charge move, but don't necessarily have the grass type typing that can hold them back against, ice and fire and that kind of stuff. Because you need to have an answer for the Swampert and the Quagsire, because those are definitely 2 Pokemon that can run pretty rampant through a best of 3 if you're not respecting them. So you'll need to pack something, but I don't know if as the meta progresses we'll see it necessarily be like a hard need for a Venusaur or a Superior or a Meganium, and it could be maybe something a little more flexible. Even something like a Sirfetch'd packing a Leaf Blade would be something to take a look at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those other mons that can kind of bring that grass coverage without kind of nailing down one of your 6 slots on your team to that sort of role, I suppose. But are there any other kind of Pokemon that you're kind of seeing here that are kind of maybe surprising, interesting, nice little Pokemon that definitely need a lot of respect? I mean, there's a lot of Pokemon here that need a lot of respect, but
yeah.
No,
absolutely. I love that it's so open so far. It's nice to see that there's a lot of theory building exercises that you can do when you're kind of building your team. More than surprises of Pokemon that are doing really well, there was a lot of Pokemon that are missing out that I was expecting to be a lot more popular. just from first glances at what was available in its respective slots, I was expecting to see, way more Mantine, way more regular Stunfisk. I was expecting to see a lot of Zapdos. Zapdos looked like a very strong pick early on, but it's really not putting up the same kind of results. And, I think that everybody was expecting Deoxys defense to be really good, and everybody was expecting Hypno to be really good. But I think that, even expecting Abomasnow to be good, it being this good this early on was a big surprise to me as well. It's not uncommon that you'll see Abomasnow on every lineup when you're looking at a practice cup. It's just there all the way down from top to bottom. And I think that it's just, even in the matchups that it's bad in, like even if you can't win a 2-shield with Abomasnow, you can still just apply so much pressure with the Powder Snow, and offering that extra grass coverage as well is super nice. So the oppressiveness of that Pokemon was a surprise, but I was really expecting to see more from Pokemon like Zapdos. Ampharos was another one early on that I thought would be a premier electric coverage type availability. Having access to Legacy Dragon Move to check some of those Dragon types, not necessarily as important, as the Dragons don't seem to be performing as well as we thought they would. Yeah. But it was nonetheless a Pokemon I was expecting to see a lot more. And Crustle, despite having 14 points, is still doing all right. I thought that Crustle was going to run rampant. I thought that Crustle was going to be one of the premier 4-pointers with access to Smackdown, because it can pop so many holes in those flying types being good. It offers a pretty good matchup into a lot of those. Abomasnow being good, and then having access to bug type charge move for some of the psychic Pokemon as well. I was expecting Crustle to be putting up better numbers than it has been so far. Not that 14 is anything to scoff at. You still have to respect this Pokemon. You still have to expect it. Yeah, you will run into it, and you do need to be prepared for it. But I thought that early on that we were going to see a lot of Crustle, a lot of Mew, and then a lot of like Stunfisk and Goodra and Wabafet as well.
Actually, Wabafet is an interesting one that I was kind of thinking that may appear a little bit more. It's at the 4-point at the moment, or 4 wins at the moment in that 4-point. It's a very annoying Pokemon.
It is. It is.
With no great sort of ghost damage, and the most common ghost stuff coming from normal types that are going to be weak to that counter. Not that Wabafet has a high attack stat to do tons of damage with that counter.
It can still get it in. No, absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see as that develops, and as more players with a more robust access to Pokemon start playing. Maybe the Wabafet's popularity is coming from not having access to the XL candies you need to really get the most out of that mon. It also could come from players just looking to fill that counter damage on a psychic type with Deoxys defense, who if you were going to pick between the two, I think a lot of people that have access to the Deoxys defense are going to go that way as well.
Yeah, I guess access is that big important thing with the top 6-point mon not being in the game for a very long time. What is it, a year and 8 months or something like that?
Very, very long time, yeah.
I am lucky that I probably started playing around that time.
I'm in the same boat. I think my first raid was one of the Deoxys defense raids, so I lucked out on just sort of having one to happenstance. I do hope that the availability for that Pokemon becomes a little more readily accessible. It's super fun to play with, and it's super. The matchups are really nuanced. Holding double Psycho Boost, having access to Rock Slide. It's a really fun Pokemon that can really offer a lot to a lot of metas. I just think that the availability is something that really, really hurts it in its ability to see a lot of regular play in these formats.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think with that, we've covered a large swath of land here.
Information dump.
Yeah, we've got a lot of data here, a really great spreadsheet. Just thank you very much for kind of putting this together, because it's seriously like an incredibly helpful resource, because I know that a ton of us out here have been very just like you were, a little bit unsure when it comes to the sort of team building, sort of how things are going. And I feel like the breakdown of the points is also incredibly helpful, how solid this sort of 6 4 4 4 1 is kind of been doing. with getting the sort of maximizing how much you can kind of fit onto your team out of these sort of really good Pokemon and not building a full squad out of a sort of more versatile, the 1 point slot. But I mean, again, none of this would be possible without the data. The data needs to be able to be used to make the spreadsheet. So if anyone out there participates in any Venture Cup tournament, practice or not, please do send them through. Again, Payne's Discord link is here. It's also on Reddit as well. I'll have a link to the original Reddit post as well in the description that you can go there, comment there as well. But yeah, I think that kind of brings us to the end here. So thank you very much for coming on, Payne. And
thank you so much.
I guess the question is, where can we find you? I think I already spoiled that bit where we can find you, but
absolutely. The best place to reach me is via Discord. I have that up all the time. I'm always looking at it. I would love to start getting these events come in more regularly, just so that I can continue to update this spreadsheet. I love doing it. I love making sure that this information is readily accessible, and if it's helpful to people and people want to contribute, please send those cups my way. It really helps everybody out in a broader sense. But Discord's the easiest way. Reddit, on the Reddit post as well. You can shoot me a message on there. Those are the two best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. And actually, if you send me personally any sort of links, if you send them, you can Discord, Twitter, YouTube comments, send me links anywhere. I'll pass them along as well. So
perfect.
Yeah. If it's too hard to find Payne, if he's hiding away, too hard to kind of use the Discord, you can just let me know and we can sort that out as well. But thank you for watching. Thank you again for Payne being here, and thank you to this wonderful spreadsheet, because I'm going to be looking at it a lot as I build my team for regionals in a few weeks. But with that said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
See ya.